watching Inside Utah Politics.
We continue to profile candidates for the GOP special primary in Utah's 2nd Congressional District. Bruce Hough, one of 3 candidates on the ballot, here to discuss his campaign. Bruce, great to have you back on the show. Always glad to have you with us.
Nice to be here, Glenn.
Different capacity this time around.
Yes.
So let's get into that. But before we actually get into your interest in the position, let's talk a little bit about background and resume. What is it that you feel brings you to this point that makes you ready to go to work in Washington?
You know, really, I think it's a lifetime of business experience that has taught me what it means to have a budget and to live by it. And when we look at Congress and we look at the state of the federal government today, they need some help on actually doing budgets and following them. So spending is a big part of the reason I'm in this race. I have 10 children, I have 22 grandchildren, and we have a $34 trillion debt. And that sort of speaks for itself in terms of my motivation, because I'm worried about the promise of America really being lost to not just my children and grandchildren, but to all those in this district and in the state. Yeah,
that's a number most of us can't even comprehend if you really start to look at it deeply. You also have some experience within the Republican Party. Talk about that.
I do. I spent as a volunteer, but elected positions. I've actually won 5 caucus conventions in this state, 2 as chairman in the early 90s, and then later I spent 12 years serving the state as a representative of the state on the Republican National Committee, where I've served most of the time on the executive committee and have been involved in national conventions for many, many years.
Going back to the deficit and just the way things are working in Washington right now. You look at that and most people would say that's a pretty daunting task to go there and try to make a difference. So why are you interested in trying to go there in a time where there's really a lot of gridlock, the atmosphere in Congress, a lot of vitriol going on right now? Why would you be interested in taking that on?
Well, first of all, I think what I bring from my background in business and politics and in the public sector, where I've done nonprofit work, is I like people, and I think what we need to do is get to a point where we try to understand each other, understand their values and their interests, take away kind of the positions for a minute and really get to know people in a way that we can develop some trust. And so I really believe that there's a lot of productive conflict that can take place in Congress, but you need someone who's had the experience of negotiation and leadership in a business setting, who can go head to head and toe to toe with the folks back there. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a career politician. This is an opportunity to try something new and to say, okay, look, let's focus on the solutions, not on the problems so much. And I think if we do that, and we do it in a way that's respectful, where we do not have contempt or vitriol for another person, but we respect them, and we use that kind of respect and kindness in our dealings with people. I'm not naive. It's a cage fight, but I think we can also be much more congenial in the way in which we do it. I like to think of the Orrin Hatch approach, who is a very dear friend, and the senator was able to get along and do things with a polar opposite in philosophy, and that was Ted Kennedy.
Right.
And I think we can do that. I think we can regain some of that effectiveness in Congress if we work at it.
You don't live in the district. There was an opening for the district you live in back in 2020. So why did you look at this opportunity and say this is the time?
Well, this was
as opposed to a couple years ago.
This was the time because I didn't have any ecclesiastical business or family issues that would have prevented me from doing it. And number 2, let me just say that 5 of the last 9 congressmen elected in this state actually were elected outside their district. It's not the zip code. It's what you do in the district. And I actually live closer to the district on the north side than anyone from the south side does by many, many hours. And so the reality is, I love what goes on in our rural counties. When I was the chairman of the party, in fact, I spent a lot of effort to make sure on redistricting that there was a rural and an urban component to it, because we're a small state. We have 4 representatives. They need to be completely aligned on the issues for the entire state, not just an urban area or a rural area. But if everybody has a combination of those, then we can serve the state better and each of those districts better, because it really is about population, not about geography, in terms of the allocation of a congressman to a state.
I want to get into some of your top priorities if you were to be elected. You already mentioned one of them, and that is the debt. Talk about the impact of the debt. One, like, you know, that trickles down as far as people being able to really even get by these days. But talk about the impact of it and what you would do to try to tackle that.
Yeah. So this is a problem, and it's a bipartisan problem. Republicans and Democrats have simply overspent. When the economy is go, 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 it seems like you can just spend, spend, spend. Unfortunately, when the economy isn't go, 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 they're still spending. In fact, we've had more spending in this last presidency with additional COVID related spending programs that were simply unnecessary, and I definitely would have voted against those. We have to slow the ship of state down. We have to get to at least a 1% growth rate so the economy can actually grow at a faster rate so that we can actually reduce the debt. I mean, just in the time that you have this show today, I think it's a 30-minute show, we'll have increased the debt by $50 million. That is a crazy amount of money.
It is.
And so what we need to do is I mean, the thing that it's kind of a correlated thing. Government and regulatory overreach is another major point that I'm concerned about. And a lot of that is they're spending money they don't need to spend, and in fact aren't even really authorized to spend, but Congress has sort of abdicated the responsibility to a regulatory agency. Taking on regulatory agencies where we have the BLM trying to do conservation leases in the state, taking away ranching and farming lands, it's a problem. And so I'm the one guy in this race, the one person who basically has taken on the regulatory state. I sued the FDA and won, and got them to go back to what their legislative mandate was.
Give us an idea of what committees you would be interested in serving on and how they would serve the 2nd District.
Well, for sure, one that I'm very interested in, it serves the state, and a lot of the employment in the northern part of the district is related to Hill Air Force Base. We do not have a member of Congress from our state on the Armed Services Committee, and from the very beginning that's been a priority. I serve as an honorary commander at the 388th Fighter Wing. Love that relationship that I have with them, and they are the tip of the spear. I mean, if people don't understand what Hill Air Force is, boy, they are the tip of the spear, but they're also a huge economic impact on the state. So Armed Services would be number one. Certainly natural resources are natural. We have, John Curtis is associated with that one. So there are some others in the area of finance, for example. Anything that is appropriation oriented, I would love to be a part of, because I'd love to cut the purse strings on a number of these agencies. Okay,
we have 30 seconds left. What is your pitch to an undecided voter who's watching right now?
I think it's leadership. I think clearly what we have is someone who has been the leader and directed the activity, and I'm the only one who's really acted in a leadership role in a significant way. And so the real difference is, number one, I also have been a faithful and consistent conservative. I voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. My opponent, Becky, voted for Biden, and my opponent, Celeste, didn't vote at all. And I think those are judgment issues, and we need to make sure that we have the person with the leadership and right judgment in office.
All right, Bruce Hough, we are coming down the stretch very quickly. We appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Glenn.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics.